For the Smash Our Stash collaboration, I used up 2 card kits from my stash. Hey guys, it's Beth. Welcome. It is time for the Smash Our Stash collaboration shared. This is a collaboration that I host, and it is about using up items in your stash. Usually it's things that you've hoarded and maybe just haven't used for one reason or another, or maybe it's things you've forgotten about that are in your stash. So this month's theme or prompt was kits or collections, so I pulled out 2 card kits from my stash. One was a Simon Says stamp kit, and I had used about half of it years ago, and I still had half of it left, so I thought I would go ahead and finish that one off. And then I also used a Scrapping for Less kit that I will share here in a minute. So this one had kind of an animation theme, but it also had some faith-based papers and then like a watercoloring theme. So it was kind of an interesting mix, and it had come with some animation features, which I didn't use the big one. It had a stamp set and kind of like an animation thing that if you move it, I'll show you an example here in a minute. It just wasn't feeling this, so I decided to stave it. And it was fun because I did try something new. I pulled out some watercolor pencils that have been in my stash for years. I picked them up at a garage sale for like pretty cheap and had never used them. So we went camping one weekend. I took along some of the pieces from the kit that would, be good watercolored. I grabbed a water brush and my watercolor pencils, and that was a fun camper crafting project for me. And again, I had not used those before, so I had fun trying something new. So I had used about half the paper on some cards I had made a couple years ago, and I took what was left. There was cardstock left as well as some of the pattern paper. So some of the pattern paper I used the B side, which was a solid, and then the other ones I used the pattern side. And then there were a couple sheets of like acrylic or acetate, not sure. They call it acetate. And there was a sheet of like images that I cut up, and then there were these numbers which I ended up not using. So I have on a couple of them, like blessed and this cross were part of the acetate that I fussy cut out, and then just kind of layered up cardstock and the pattern paper. On the inside, I did, if it was dark cardstock, I added the white paper, and then I used a strip of the paper that was on the front. These were like 2 of the acetate pieces plus some other hearts from my stash. These were 2 acetate pieces. And then I took all of the scraps that I had, both like from the papers that I used on these cards as well as from the cards I'd made before, and paired them with this animation piece. So this is it can be a gift card holder too, but if you can kind of see how it makes it look like the heart is moving. I just used it, on the front, but when you stamp the animated stamps, it just has those lines which kind of mix with the lines here to make it look like it's moving. So that's kind of cool. For some reason, just wasn't up for it at this time. So I used up the last bits of paper here on that card, and then these were my watercolor cards, and I did okay. It was challenging to kind of get the colors to blend a little bit, but it was fun, and some of the colors didn't really blend at all. They just kind of looked like colored pencil. So whether or not that's newbie user error or the pencils, I don't know, but I still think they looked okay. So then on this one on the inside, I just used one of the acetate pieces I had left, and then there was this one and had a scrap of paper. So but I get like 6 cards from this kit, and then I had a Stamping for Less kit that I pulled out, And I picked it because I needed to make some graduation cards. And so I started this kit several weeks ago because I needed some cards to fill in order. So I made just the graduation cards and then kind of set it aside and came back to it later in the month. So I have already sent off the graduation cards, so I will be sure to insert a picture of those here so you can see them. But for a lot of the cards, I used, well, not for a lot, I think for a couple of the cards, I used some of the sketches that came with the Scrapping for Less kit. And this was a November kit, not sure which year, but I decided after I had made those graduation cards, I switched to some scrapbook pages because when I looked at some of the embellishments and the papers, I thought they would be really cute for some of my girl layouts. So this is Avery, and she was pouting for some reason, but she was wearing Ellie's recital outfit from that year. And this is one of my favorite pictures ever. So I decided to play with that one, and I made two different versions of it. This was the first version I did, and this was one of the ephemera pieces that came in one of the collections of the Scrapping for Less kit. And I mixed two collections to get these layouts. The pinks were from one, and then the glitter were from another collection. And then I used one of the stamps that came in one of the collections. It says, "You're so beautiful," and I did emboss that in pink, which I don't emboss very often, so that was fun. And then this was another stamp set, and the girl with the flowers. And then I just kind of embellished with some sequins and then my journaling. I kind of kept it fairly simple since there was a lot going on with the glitter and the patterns. And on this one, I just took 4 different patterns and trimmed them down to 5 inches each, and then rounded one, like the outside corner on each square. This one, I decided to try it a little bit bigger, and so I did them at 5.5 inch squares, and again, rounded the corners. So this one I did on black, just because the colors were a little bit different. These were 3 ephemera pieces, 4, I guess, of the ephemera pieces that came with that glitter paper collection. And then I took what was left and I made a bunch of cards. So kind of like mixing and matching the collections here. I made several of this MFT Sketch 192. So there was a kind of masculine themed collection, like blues and yellows and blacks, and it had some masculine themed stamps. So I just treated these as like Father's Day cards, and so colored up and fussy cut out the hat, and then used this infant "Hey There, Sharp Dressed Man." And then I do have scraps on the inside. And then there was one of the collections that had like burlap and wood grain, and then it had these really beautiful tags. And so I used that same sketch, but just did it with the tag ephemera piece, and then accented with some sequins. This one, I turned it to be a horizontal orientation so I could use that horizontal tag. And then I did sketch number 1 for them, which was Sweet Sunday sketch 264. And I had used this on some of the graduation cards I did as well. And this one is Happy Father's Day. This was the Not Too Shabby stamp set that I used in the month of May. It was the Magic Spring Messages, and I had that on my desk, and so I decided to go ahead and pull that in here. Thought that made a good Father's Day card. Then I pulled out Operation Right Home sketch number 29 and used up some of the last bits I had of this wood grain paper. So 2 of those, and then this is card pattern sketch number 146, and it's by Michelle Bertuzzi. And I kind of did a couple different versions of this. I didn't follow the sketch exactly, but it kind of gave me a jumping off point to use up some of the strips that I had left. So I used, this is both from that burlap collection, and this is the back side of one of those patterns. And so I just kind of flipped one over and created a space between the two, but it created a focal point, in the center of my black card map. And then I used, this was an ephemera piece that talked about makeup or something, which I hadn't used, and it was sitting there like it was actually upside down. I thought, ooh, I can use that as a backing for my sentiment, and I used up a scrap of one of the burlap patterns to make a scallop circle behind my thinking of you sentiment. And this is another version of that. This is my favorite thing, sketch number 170. And again, that was just kind of a jumping off point. And then I wanted a bigger sentiment, and so I just kind of used a bigger sentiment, raised it up a little bit, but did the same thing where it hangs off a little bit on the left side. And then I brought in some pink sequins to help kind of dress it up a little bit. But again, used that same hey there sharp dressed man sentiment, colored the hat in blue this time, and layered up some of the scrap pieces I had on one of the other patterns. And then for these next few cards, I was just trying to use up strips. So a lot of these were the patterns that came off my scrapbook page. So they were 1 inch or 1/2 inch. And so I just kind of grouped some of the strips together on black card mats. And then this thank you came from an old Scrapping for Less stamp set. And then I layered it on one of the ephemera pieces that came in one of the collections, and then a scrap piece of the polka dot. And then on all of them, I had brought in some of the sequins to use as embellishment. This one is a little bit bigger. All of my other cards have been A2. This one is a little bit bigger. It's like 5 by 6.5. It's a weird size, but I had picked up a pack of these card bases and envelopes at Hobby Lobby several years ago on clearance. This is loosely based off of another sketch that I've used before. And so I had a black strip that I just went kind of behind this top layer, took a scrap of the polka dot and punched it into a scallop circle, and then added my best wishes sentiments and some sequins. And then that one I added in a little bit more of paper on the inside because I was trying to use it up. And then this last one, I just took some of the pieces I had left, trimmed them down to, I think I did 1 3/4 by 2. And then from that same old Scrapping for Less stamp set that I got the previous thank you from, I also used the sentiment thank you from the bottom of my heart, which I thought was really cute. And I had some little scrap pieces left of like the various patterns, and so I decided to go ahead and punch them into hearts and then use them kind of on the little grid pieces to emphasize, the whole thank you from the bottom of my heart sentiment. So those were all of the cards I got using up kits, 2 kits. Got 2 kits out of my stash, 2 boxes out of my stash, got a bunch of cards made, a couple of scrapbook pages done. This is a collaboration, and I forgot to mention it before that there are other participants who are also using up kits and collections this month. They will be linked in the description box below, so please be sure to check them out and show them some love as well. But I thank you guys so much for your time today and hope you all have a very crafty day.